Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid.
I promise you, this is not a political podcast.
Jump, from the deep into the pool, set up the mood. Paranoid radio, set up the mood. Paranoid radio, set up the mood. Paranoid radio, set up the mood. 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 Set up the mood.
Spaceman. Dude, I can't live without dinosaur. I think Jurassic Park is the most accurate movie ever made. How dare you talk shit about Jurassic Park? Testicles 1, 2, testicles. Welcome back to Paranoid Radio Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Trebles Garcia, your humble host. And I want to thank the Lord for allowing me to be here today. And I want to thank every single one of you for allowing me to enter your space. Guys, I have an amazing episode lined up for all of you guys. I want you guys to make sure to keep on doing what you guys are doing. But remember that the most important thing that you could do for the show today is word of mouth. Check us out at paranoidradio.com and check out the affiliations. Now, I'm going to get a little dark, but I have to tell you this. Guys, if you're going through an emotional distress, if you guys are contemplating or entertaining suicidal thoughts, don't. Take 10 seconds off your life. Take 10 seconds to get to a 24/7 lifeline to talk to somebody. You could find that button on paranoidradio.com. It's the first thing you see on the website. If you guys want to speak to a stranger, you could also hit me up directly. My phone number is associated with my Instagram account. We don't want no more weeping mothers, no more weeping sisters or daughters, brothers, fathers. Please reach out and put your burden on somebody else. Guys, also, I want to remind you that if you guys are being paranormally activated or there's any cryptid warfare, any cryptids around your house, make sure you check out Cryptid Warfare Operations. I don't get paid to say this, guys. These guys are official. It's an official unit that would guide you and also give you the tools or even come and hunt that critter for you. Make sure you check out Cryptid Warfare Operations with Drewski from Cryptid Warfare Podcast. And also live parasitic free with Ali Christine. Ali Christine is a beautiful soul. She gives you tools to make kids healthy again. Eliminate those demons off your gut called parasites and off your life for good. Do not forget to season your meat before you eat with Flavors of the Forest. And check out Flavors of the Forest. Get 15% off today. Enough of the promotion, guys. I got to jump in from the deep end of the pool and set the freaking mood. Please give a warm welcome to John Lee. He's an author, and also he is the podcast host of It's Not What You Think podcast. What's up, Lee?
Hey, how you doing, my friend? Thank you so much for having me on. God bless you.
God bless you too, man. I like I told you before we started recording, I saw you on Sunday Night Secret Society's podcast and 647 Double Play. Mad shoutouts to Hank and Chef. Dude, you blew it up, man. Blew it up. And I was commenting in the comment section while you were going there because like you were going fast and it was an amazing episode. But I was shaving my head while you were doing it and I have to tell it to you, bro. I'm like, I need a piece of that pie. So where can people find you?
They can find me. Well, I've had a Twitter. You know, I've had several different platforms. They've all been taken away from me. I'm shadow banned all hell. I used to get 25,000 views on my Instagram and Facebook and YouTube on, you know, a jump rope video, and now or a fight video or a knockout highlight or something. And now I don't get, you know, shit for shit, any views at all. You know, when I say I'm completely shadow banned, like I really am. And they've taken away my Twitter. They've taken away my original Instagram. You know, they've taken away my Facebook. You know, they've taken away every single account. Every time I give a podcast and I start going deep on Semyaza and 77, everyone's, you know, electronics start messing up, you know. So, you know, all I'm saying is where there's smoke, there's fire. But you can find me on the Florida Keys Kid 7 on Instagram, and you know, It's Not What You Think on Spotify and on YouTube. I'm trying to figure out Rumble, but I haven't been able to break through that on anything yet. So
Oh yeah, Rumble, man. People they had it popping for a bit and then they left. But it's like an echo chamber now. Either way, I'm not complaining. I mean, I try to post it up too. We started a YouTube account again, and because the first one got shut down, so we started another one, and now we're here. But hey, man, like YouTube is one of these tools that we have to utilize if we're even remotely gonna start making noise, right? So it's something that we need to do, and unfortunately, it is the cards that we've been dealt with. It's not what the cards are; it's just how you deal with them. So, like poker, everybody has a chance to make it, right? So, and everybody has a chance to make a bet. Um, you have a book. What's it called?
My book's called 77 Trust Fund Dork Avenue, and it's pretty much about this, fuckery that these, this generation of trust fund dorks that rule the world, the masters of mankind, the elite, the Illuminati, whatever, secret society name you want to bestow on them. You know, um, these guys are all pretty much their grandfathers and their fathers were obsessed with this Aleister Crowley guy, right?
Hmm.
And everyone was obsessed with this guy, and people don't realize how much this guy is still affecting us today. And my book is pretty much tells you what Crowley said, what this playbook is that he wrote, and showing you all, where you find, all this fuckery in the events, leading all the way up to from World War II to, the Baltimore Bridge just last year.
It's intense. It is intense. I'm not gonna take too much time from your life. We have a lot to go through real quick. This is Wednesday 7th at 7 p.m. for the 377th episode, guys. I kind of nudged this at the guys. No, I'm like, that's gonna be perfect. Let's freaking go. Yo, talk to me, dude. What's up with the sevens, man? Give me a point of view. I noticed that you were an amazing you connected a lot of different dots, connecting the sevens, and they almost do it ritualistically.
Oh yeah. So what it is what I believe is, there's a lot of evidence throughout history that there's all this rebranding going on. These fallen angels, these watchers, they came down, these Anunnaki,
Hmm.
they came down and they, mated with human women and created giants, and then you have this flood story throughout every civilization, dragons throughout every civilization, and these fallen entities throughout every civilization, but they all have a different name. So there's a lot of rebranding going on depending on where you are in the world. And the most recent rebranding is what Aleister Crowley said is when you see 77 and 42 everywhere, you'll know that the goat of Mendez and the Dark Mother have arrived. And what I believe is all he's doing, because he wants to be this famous occultist, and he's just rebranding the lead fallen angel, which in the book of Enoch is Semyaza, and the lead female fallen entity, demon, angel, what have you, which has been rebranded many times, Lilith, Venus,
Mhm.
you know, Aphrodite, and what he calls her is the Dark Mother. And you see this worship throughout all these events and all of these movies and all of these news stories. And I have a presentation that's a PowerPoint that helps keep us going. If you want me to share it,
Absolutely. Let me open that up for you. Bam.
and here, let's see here. Okay, can you see this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll go all the way up to the top here. Okay, so here's the cover to my book, 77 Trust Fund Dork Avenue. And, I pretty much give a shout out here to the Bohemian Grove fuckery, and like Nixon said, that's the faggiest bunch of shit I ever seen in my life. That's Richard Nixon's quote about what went on at Bohemian Grove. So that's from the horse's mouth. And shortly after he said that, remember he got he had to resign as president. So I seriously don't think that's an accident. But here's my book cover. It's got the 33, it's got the 77, it's got the 42 on there, it's got JFK's license plate on there, which is a GG, which is a 77. And Sam Tripoli wrote the foreword for my book, and I was recently on Tinfoil Hat, which I also believe was episode 877, and I was also on episode 777. And I want you everyone to think about this quote from Ian Fleming, who is the creator of James Bond, who used to be Aleister Crowley's assistant when he was a spy. Remember, Aleister Crowley was a spy for England, right? So he's deep in the fuckery and deep into this chaos magic, this sex magic. But think about this quote: once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, three times is enemy action. Three times is enemy action. And so keep that in mind as we go through this presentation, right? So yeah, I'm married with children, and I have 4 kids. One is 18, recently moved out, so I'm having a hard time with that. Um but yeah, my grandpa was a captain in the Navy. It was at one time the lead test pilot for the entire Navy. And this is my dad and my grandpa on the sailboat. There's me riding some dolphins. I really am the Florida Keys kid. I'm 14 and one as a professional fighter. I own a boxing club, and at 6 a.m. I have a 6 a.m. class, and then I work during the day and then come back for the 6 p.m. class, and I try to be dad and write books and do a podcast in between. So there's not much time in the day to get all this stuff done. But like I always say, God wrote this book and I was just the pen. Whether you want to fight about the name of Jesus, Yeshua, it really doesn't matter to me. It's really simple how this goes. You're either on the side of love, forgiveness, and understanding, and treat people how you want to be treated, or you're on the side of lying and manipulation and using people and evil and killing and doing whatever the fuck you want. And what is their motto? Do what thou wilt is the whole of the law, right? So, a lot of people get hung up on the devil, they get hung up on Lucifer, they get hung up on this Satan, but really the lead fallen angel is very clear in the book of Enoch, what they took out of the Bible on purpose, I believe, because it's got all the cool shit in there. It's Semyaza. It's super clear. It's Semyaza is the lead fallen angel, right? Now, Satan, we know, just means adversary. That's why in the movie The Pope's Exorcist, when he's trying to investigate what the demon's name is, he says to the demon, "Tell me your name, Satan," because he needs to know the real name. Satan isn't a name. It just is your enemy. If I'm boxing somebody, right, that's your Satan, right? But everybody, they're always rebranding, right? Because in every Exorcist movie, that's a lot of revelation of the method, which is them having to tell you what they're doing, for people that don't know. They have to tell you, you have to figure out the real name over the demon, over the entity, to be able to hold power over it. First, you have to say Jesus 100 times or whatever and go through all these plagues. And then you can figure out the name because it will confess to you. And then you can hold power over it. And I believe that's why they spend so much effort and time going through all of this, like rebranding so much, but they're always worshiping real fallen angels and real demons in these movies, which I think is interesting. They never ever use like fake names. They're always using real names, real ancient entities, right? So what is revelation of the method for all your listeners that maybe you're just tuning in? I'm sure it's was coined by James Shelby Downard, which is these ancient trust fund dorks reveal their crimes as part of a psychological manipulation process, ensuring the public, the herd, passive acceptance of their control. They use ancient symbolism and rituals, talismans, statues, all sorts of different types of methods to put it out there in front of you. And movies is, an alchemical ritual that they're doing in front of you at the same time. And what the elite believe is they believe in reincarnation, right? they don't believe in hell like the way it's presented to us, right? In my opinion, this place is hell, and you keep coming back to it until you ascend with the Christ, right?
Mm.
So, my point of view pretty much is their point of view, because I believe what they believe. They're the ones that are running the show. They're the ones that have this deep esoteric information. So they believe in reincarnation, and that they have to tell you what they're doing in some sort of subtle way, media, a song, just
Mhm.
like the new song by Avril Lavigne and Billy Idol just came out. It's called
Mhm.
77, right?
Mhm.
It's called
Mhm.
77, and in the chorus goes, fight back like 77, fight back like 77. I believe that's a straight up saying rebel against God like Semyaza. They literally said it just like that. Fight back like 77, right? It's very
Wow.
clever. It's very clever how they use it, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
crowd, and this song just came out, right? And this is there's a lot of 77s going on this year, right? So it's
Mhm.
pretty crazy. I just saw a post by a famous guy on Twitter that says, on May 14th, Trump will be 77 and 700 days old. It's like, what in the fuck? Why on earth? Why why would you just say he's going to be 79? It's so fucking stupid. It's just it makes no sense, but you can tell this is how they worship it, right? Uh
Mm.
and Crowley believed that he was a reincarnation of Elias Levi, who's the guy that drew the Baphomet like the way we know it with the goat. And, that's why all of this goat stuff is being worshiped the way it is, because that's the same way as saying 77, right?
Mm.
And you'll see this 77 everywhere. Like I was watching the movie Roadhouse and I said, God, I'm not looking at another 77 tonight. I found some disturbing ones on the computer and I was like, I'm done with this book tonight. And I go in and watch the new Roadhouse with Conor McGregor and Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, uh-huh.
What is the only mile marker that this motherfucker walks by in the entire movie? Mile marker 77, right? That is not an
Wow.
accident. That is not an accident, ladies and gentlemen. That's also God's way of telling me, you don't tell me shit. I'll tell you when you're done looking at
Yep.
77s, right? And
Mhm.
so here are a few other ones. Luigi Maggione was the guy that just killed the CEO a couple months ago. And when he was
Mhm.
arrested, he was following 77 people on Twitter. But also, his family owns a retirement home chain known for abuse of old people. And they were opened in 1977, right?
Is
So
that
it,
right?
it's always there, right? Yeah, I
Mhm.
can't remember what the name of it is. I think it may be later on the presentation. But
Mhm.
here is Helldivers. It's a game where one of the main characters has a tattoo of 77 on his arm. And even this person in the Reddit is like, what's the significance of 77? Which I thought was funny. In the
Mhm.
movie Fallen with Denzel Washington from the 90s, they actually, and this is the most used fallen angel name, which is Azazel. Azazel is pretty much the second in command of the Watchers, and he is worshipped in more movies than any other. Now, I think that's interesting because Semyaza is the leader, and you almost never hear Semyaza worshipped in movies by name. It's always 77, Saturn symbolism, or the goat, right? It's
Mhm.
always used some sort of symbol, but they never do it by the real name, which I think is pretty interesting. The only movie that I ever heard them say Semyaza in was Noah, was Russell Crowe. They make
Uh-huh.
they make the Watchers out to be these these friendly rock monsters which help him, and he says, "But Semyaza," and he says it really fast, right? So that's the only movie I've ever seen it in. I've watched tons of these like spiritual type movies, to try to, add to different type of books I want to write, but they'll
Mhm.
use books, religious articles, science articles, laws, talisman, and etymology is like the icing of the cake of how they make fun of us, right?
Mhm.
That's why during COVID, they kept saying we need to achieve herd immunity. But here's a couple recent examples. MAGA, which is used by Trump, is Latin for sorceress. Doge is Latin for Venetian banking leader, right? And it doesn't get any more trust fund dork than Venetian banking leader. That's the black nobility. That's Venice, Italy. That is the ancient trust fund dorks, right? Pharmacy is Greek from pharmakia, which just means sorcery. And science, I believe science is a straight up, twist on seance, which is just a ritual to invoke an entity in a different dimension, or what have you. So here's the Georgia Guidestones, which is a talisman. It's an altar built by the elite that pretty much say we need to keep the population under 500 million at all times. Otherwise, the planet will be in dire consequence. And they recently blew that up, and a lot of people were really happy about that, but they don't realize that when you destroy the talisman, you complete the ritual in alchemy, right? So it's not good that they did that. And and here's some more revelation of method. They've got the black cube of Saturn everywhere. That's just another way of saying Semyaza and 77 and the goat. You'll see at CERN all of these people wearing goat masks during these rituals. Like, if this is supposed to be the most, richest, most popular, best science lab in the world that's smashing particles together and figuring out the Big Bang with black holes, then why in the fuck are they doing rituals with goat masks? Right? Go look up CERN rituals, goat mask, and it's the most fucked up shit you ever seen, people.
That's true.
But yeah, you'll see this all over. So that's just more 77 worship with the goat, which is the goat of Mendez. What did Crowley say? The goat of Mendez, whose number is 77. Right? It's very clear. I'm not even have to speculate there. So this is what I'm speculating about, is that the elite are using this playbook, Liber Oz, right, to create confusion. They're talk to each other with their twilight symbolism, and they're worshiping it right in front of your face, right? Now, what is the playbook? The playbook is Liber Oz, written by Aleister Crowley. And what does Liber Oz mean? Book 77. Also, the book of the goat, right? So it all ties in. And what is the main important line of this book? And it's a one-page book. That's how cool this guy thinks he is. He thinks he can fucking write one page and call it a book. But this is the playbook that the elite are going by. And this is the law of the strong, right? So they mean themselves, the elite, the law of the strong. And it's do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And there's no God but man, right? So, and I believe that's them lying, because they worship these fallen entities, that made them in charge of this realm, right? Now, one reason I say God wrote this book is because I was struggling with my last chapter and I didn't know how to finish it. And then I saw on Reddit that somebody said, happy 77th anniversary to Aleister Crowley. And I said, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. And on December 1st, after I was already editing, right? Because I wanted to be done during the summer. But that would have been a big mistake if I would have achieved my original goal, because I made more of a discovery. And after December 1st was the 77th anniversary of Aleister Crowley's death. Right. So, wow. And that was on accident, just like your episode 877 on 7th, May 7th at 7:00. Right. It's, that wasn't on purpose. That's just us scheduling
a show.
Now,
this is insane.
Now, what Aleister Crowley, what I believe where he got this obsession with, was from these two guys, John Dee and Edward Kelly. And remember, he believed that he was a reincarnation of Edward Kelly, right? So he believed he was one of these guys reborn. And that's why he uses the same 7-sided star, right? And these are scrying stones. And John Dee and Edward Kelly, they did this scrying ritual, which was a highly ritualized process involving prayer, fasting, specific tools, with Kelly receiving visions and messages from the angels, Raphael, Uriel, Michael, all these famous angels that we know. The Meister for Queen Elizabeth really talked to, right? And they made a language and they wrote it down. And here's a crystal ball that's in the museum. Here's the scrying stone that's in the museum. Now think about scrying for a second. Think about the word and think about etymology. Scrying was a flat black glass mirror that they used to talk to other entities in a portal. A flat black glass obsidian mirror. And what is this called? It's called a screen. Scrying, screen, scrying. So I believe this is more trust fund dork fuckery with the wording, and they're always like
I have to interrupt. I
Yes, sir.
just did a deep dive that I haven't put up, and I'm leaving little breadcrumbs everywhere, but I haven't put the episode out on the Olmecs and how they used liquid obsidian for the same thing, ancient technology to allegedly ascend, dimension travel, and they used encoded blood rituals to tap into the technology in the stone, so the stone has memory. And these, dude, the way I broke it down, I was like, oh my goodness. Right now that you just mentioned obsidian, they would use the same thing. It is said that the Olmecs left remnants of codices and technology to be used in today's technology, and that the elite are using it for their advantage. Oh my goodness, bro. You just stamped
Absolutely.
oh my
And
God.
think about this for a second before we get too off track, because we can touch right on what you just said. All of this like technology, when you study the inventor, they had some crazy occult experience that it's like, are they
Yes.
tapping into something? Like Seymour Cray, the inventor of the supercomputer, said he couldn't figure out shit. But when he went to dig holes in his backyard, the elves filled up his notebook, right? He did several interviews like this, right? And then Charles Babbage, the inventor of the regular computer, summoned the devil at 18 years old, right? So whenever you study this technology and you study the inventor, like there is some weird occult thing going on all the time, almost every time. And yeah, this is all alchemy rebranded, and they make it seem like science, but it's this ancient magic that these guys are always doing, and it's like they hardwired this magic so it works every time. You know what I mean? It's pretty
Mm,
interesting.
they
And
hardwired the magic.
right, but it's still the same outcome. You're talking to an entity through your portal when you're AIing you're not fucking about.
Mhm,
I thought this was interesting. There's these Enochian spell books, right? So this
mhm,
is kind of like what we're talking about, the Book of Enoch, Enochian magic. This is what Crowley is really obsessed with. And right away, Enochian spellbook, forbidden archangel magic, 77 forbidden Enochian invocations. It's like right there, 77 forbidden Enochian invocations. As you'll always find it there. They're always putting it there. And why is it 77 and 42? Well, Crowley rebranded this, but why? Well, we can only speculate, but I believe it's because John Dee and Edward Kelly, when they were making their Enochian dictionary in their Enochian language, they wrote and they made specifically that the angels told them to write in boxes of 7 times 7. Right? I thought that was very interesting. 49 characters, a 7 times 7 box, right?
mhm.
And and they did this ritual for 42 months, right? So
Wow.
this could be, and we're only speculating, but I'm making a detective educated guess here on trying to tap into where Crowley's coming from. Is
Mhm,
he's going by the research into John Dee's diaries and catalogs revealed a significant mention, and it's called Liber Resurrectus et 42 Mentium Fundamentum, which translates to Book of the Resurrection and the Foundation of 42 Months, right? So it's like he tells you that you can't even trust him. In the Book of the Lies, he's making up shit. He's LARPing. He's a total pedophile piece of shit, right? Nobody has any reason to look up to this guy. But on Reddit, if you go to Thelema, his religion, you'll see all these people greeting each other 93, 93. Instead of saying hi, they're doing the Aleister Crowley 93, right? And it's really interesting. You see this 93 and the sun 93 million miles away. Buzz Lightyear, Buzz Aldrin.
Buzz Lightyear's gay too. He was gay too.
Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon for 93 minutes. The International Space Station goes around the Earth in 93 minutes. Like, you see this 93 a lot in space, but also in the 9/11 mass ritual, Flight 93 was delayed on the runway for 42 minutes. I mean, it's all day long that they're using this 77, 42, 93, and 33 all day long, every day, and everything that you'll ever see. And shout out to Paranoid American, the infamous wife swap. Remember, Edward Kelly was smart enough to tell John Dee that the angels told him to let him sleep with his young wife for research purposes, right? So in the end, it's always about hitting holes. You know what I mean? And who is John Dee? John Dee was the maester for the famous Queen Elizabeth from 1588, who smashed the Spanish Armada, who tried to come in with all their boats. They've made a bunch of movies about her. She's the redhead daughter of Henry VIII, who chopped off his wife's head, right? So there's a little bit of the history that comes with this. But, you know, and let's not forget, you know, where I think Harry Potter came from was one of Crowley's students, a real life wizard named Israel Regardie. You can take one look at that picture and tell me that Harry Potter is not based off that guy.
1000%. 1000%.
And
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you short here, but I'm running through a little issue in the back. My youngest daughter's going crazy, so we have about 10 or 15 minutes left. We're gonna need a second parter, and the audience is gonna be like, "Angel, you always do this." I know. It makes you coming back. You have to keep coming back for it, guys. Lee, continue on, brother.
So we'll have to do a second part for sure, and I'll try to get through this.
Do not rush through anything, though. You have to give it like this. Yeah.
Right. Okay. But let's keep this in mind, right? And we'll be able to get through a couple of the big rituals, you know, and then you'll realize, oh fuck, this is really fucked up. But remember what Israel Regardie said. And I think this is super important, and this will be in my next book, this part, but because I missed this source in the first book. But it really makes little difference in the long run whether the Book of the Law was dictated to Crowley by a preter-human intelligence named Aiwass, or whether it stemmed from the creative depths of Aleister Crowley's mind. The book was written, and he became the mouthpiece for the zeitgeist, accurately expressing the intrinsic nature of our time as no one else has done to date. So he's telling you, look, we're the elite. We're going by what this guy said, whether he really talked to an angel or not. Like, it really doesn't matter. Like, we're going by what he said. It's right there. And so that brings us to the United States of America's biggest mass rituals, 9/11 and the Oklahoma City bombing, right? And so, first of all, I want you to keep in mind that these events are 77 months apart, right? So right off the bat, these events are 77 months apart. And we'll start with Oklahoma City, which the Murray Building opened on 1977, and it sits right next to Route 77.
Get the fuck out.
When Timothy McVeigh was arrested, he was arrested 77 minutes after the bombing in his 1977 Mercury Marquis. And here's a picture of the car, which is in a museum. So they have 1977, Mercury Marquis sitting in the museum. This is them worshiping it again. Remember, it's in a museum now, so people walk by it and they're like 77,
Feed that
77.
energy. Yeah, feeding it.
Yes, they're feeding the energy. And these spells are compounding. They believe the more they place these things here, they're all compounding into a big overall spell and worship to the 77, right? So they released an official report. Here's the oklahoma.gov, Alfred P. Murray building report. It's 77 pages long, right? So
Wow.
the so here's
You can't
here's
make this
just
shit up, dude.
you can't make this shit up, right? And the FBI said that they used aluminum powder, which if you look in sciencedirect.com says it gives it a an increase of energy by 77%, right?
Down to
So
the element, bro.
down to the fucking element, right? And it really is. We'll get. I hopefully we'll get to it before you got to go, but it is really about the elements. And in that 77-page report, they identified 77 victims by DNA. The attorney for Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols was Dennis Hartley, and they made a big deal about him getting disbarred. Well, he was 77 when he was disbarred, right? And also, Terry Nichols was arrested with a cache of 77 guns, which was interesting because in the news they had a bunch of messed up sources, but I actually had to go to the court document and it said it right there. 77, he stole 77 guns from this bar owner. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. But there's how many is that in just, there's 5, 9, 10.
And those are not coincidences. After the third one, it's an attack.
Enemy action. Yeah, it's
Yep.
enemy action. So then we go to September 11th, which, just like Oklahoma City, it was, the opening ceremony was September 11th, 1941. So the same day of the attack was the same day they had the groundbreaking ceremony. And who made the groundbreaking ceremony? The 77th Congress, which built the Pentagon 77 feet tall, which built it on coordinates of 77 degrees longitude and built it with 7,700 windows.
Shut the front door, bro.
Right? So I can believe all that construction is done on purpose. I'm in construction. There's a lot of planning. They obviously planned to build it on the 77 longitude, to build it by the 77th Congress, to build it 77 feet tall, to build it with 77 5,500 windows, right? They obviously did that on purpose, but don't expect me to believe that it was just a coincidence that these terrorists, in quotes, just happened to pick Flight 77, which was in the air for exactly 77 minutes.
Fuck up.
And
These
here's
motherfuckers. Dude, that is. It's almost a comedy show what they're running.
Oh, it's so bad because how many firefighters were killed? 343. That's 7 times 7 times 7.
Get the fuck out of here, bro.
And what was the name of the mobile command center on that day? If we ever get attacked, there's this thing called the Doomsday Plane. It's a mobile Pentagon. It has to take off and be on the other side of the country for protocol if we get attacked. But for some reason, it flew right over the Pentagon. You know what I mean? Flew right over at the time that the supposed Flight 77 hit the 77-foot wall. What is the call sign of this Boeing E-4 Advanced Airborne Command Post? Venus 77.
Shut the fuck up.
And remember, Venus is 42, is Lilith, is Ishtar, is just the Roman version, right? So it's the same thing as 42. So you got your 42 right on top of your 77 there. Venus 77. And also, Venus is symbolized esoterically by a 7-sided star. So they're kind of double dipping there. And they love doing that. They love double dipping and marinating in this shit. And United Flight 175 hit the World Trade Center on the 77th floor, right? How many victims were killed? 2977 innocent victims. We don't know if the hijackers are real, so they like to add that to the deaths. Like, the hijackers don't count. We don't even know if those were real, right? Because listen, in the video from the security booth at the Pentagon, it shows a missile. It clearly shows a missile. There was no plane parts. There, just like Flight 93, they said went so hard into the ground that the ground just engulfed it. That's why there was no plane there. I mean, you really research this shit, and you can't even stomach what they're telling you. They're mocking you with the narrative, right? But people don't go deep enough. They actually don't even know what the real narrative is. So much people don't know the narrative, right? And Poppy Bush, who was the father of the real wizard on that day, was 77 years old. And don't forget, Building 7 collapsed, right? So you got Building 7 falling. But also, don't forget that the news made a big deal about 9/11, or about George W. Bush reading My Pet Goat. Of course, it's a goat. Remember, a goat is 77, is the goat of Mendez.
Are you serious?
He's reading My Pet Goat, and they made a big deal about it for 7 minutes. He just had to be reading it for 7 minutes, right? So they made a big deal about that in the news. So you got Building 7, 7 minutes. There's another 77 plus the pet goat, which is a stand-in for the goat of Mendez, right? And what does he have the kids say? Steal, fly, hit, plane. If you ever watch their chant, he has them like say some weird shit, and it's steal, fly, hit, plane. You can't make this shit up. And here is Poppy Bush getting his aircraft carrier, and of course he picked CVN 77, right? So we're talking the two biggest rituals in the United States history, and I just went over like 24 77s that aren't random. They're part of construction. They're part of the narrative. Their flight times, their flight numbers, they're the floor that the flight hit. They pay attention to how they tell the story. And look, even on his aircraft carrier hat, they got the Baphomet right on the fucking hat. I mean, we don't even have to guess, people. Look, there's a fucking goat on his fucking Navy hat with the 77. This is what they wore during the ceremony for the USS George Bush. They were all wearing these hats with a pentagram on it, with the head of fucking goat on it with a 77. You cannot make this shit up, right?
I am blown away.
Now, what's the third biggest attack on United States soil? Pretty much was Waco, right? Here's two articles right here that tell you the final death toll of Waco. It's written by William Booth, April 29th, 1993 at 8 p.m. The final death toll of Waco cult appears to be 77. And then here's Time magazine saying the agents were attempting to arrest leader David Koresh, and they raid the group's 77-acre complex. Those are the three biggest ones. And also, Waco sits right next to Route 77 as well. And Waco was the reason for Oklahoma City. Remember, Timothy McVeigh blamed Waco for Oklahoma City. So it's all compounding. All of this shit, it was compounding to 9/11, which is, I believe, the mass ritual which transitioned from the Eon of Osiris to the Eon of Horus. And, this new Eon of Horus is what Crowley's always talking about, right? And so here's my favorite one, right? The dinosaurs were killed by this thing called iridium in the asteroid. And it says it right here. Asteroid dust found in crater closes the case. We found some dust. It closes the case. They're telling you, you got to trust us. You got to trust us. Iridium in undersea crater confirms the asteroid wiped out the dinosaurs. What is the atomic number of iridium? And this is some of my best detective work. I saw this article and I said, iridium. I go, I wonder what the atomic number of iridium is. And I looked it up and it's 77. So if you're worshiping dinosaurs, you're worshiping Semyaza. They tell you 77 is what killed the fucking dinosaurs.
And this is where we're gonna leave it off because we started with Jurassic Park and you ended with dinosaurs.
Boom. Fuck Jurassic Park. I love that movie. My dad took me and fucking when it came out at the theater, it was one of the biggest moments of my life. We fucking loved it so much. And fuck all that shit. It's Dragons rebranded. Dragons rebranded.
Who
Part
can
2
say
coming up next
who
time.
can say fuck Jurassic Park? I love that movie at the same time, dude. Yo, everybody, we're gonna do a part 2. I swear. This is John Lee. He has a book. Let them know where they can find you. One more time.
The Florida Keys Kid on Instagram, and It's Not What You Think podcast on Spotify. And I also have a website, it's notwhatyoutthink.com. So yeah, check me out. And yeah, you see all my fight highlights on YouTube and also some of my podcasts and stuff like that. So
Make sure you
come check me out. And God bless you guys. Thank you so much for having me. And trust me, this is barely scratching the surface. This is barely scratching the surface.
I'm gonna hit you up on another date so I could get you back in here and finish off the rest of your presentation. I do have to apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, check them out at paranoidradio.com. Check them out on Instagram. Check them out. Check out this book. Check them out on YouTube. Check them out on all the socials. It's gonna be on the description of the show and on the drop-down menu on the website. Drop a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. That allows other people to enjoy the show as much as I enjoy making it. God bless you. God bless your soul and your family, bro. Thank you so much. Peace.
Peace.